The ASUS G703 is a thick and powerful gaming laptop with some serious hardware inside, but how well does it perform in games? I've benchmarked 13 different games at all setting levels to show you how well it runs and help you decide if it's worth it. I've had a lot of requests in the comments to cover the G703, so here we go at last. Just quickly before we jump into the benchmark results, I'll cover off the specs in my unit. There's an Intel i9-8950HK CPU, NVIDIA GTX 1080 graphics, and 64GB of memory running in dual channel. But it's also available with other specs, like an i7 CPU, so expect different results with different configurations. Testing was done with overboost mode enabled, so the fan was maxed out and the following CPU and GPU overclocks were in place. I was running Windows 10 with the latest NVIDIA drivers available, so let's see how well it runs. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode and not in multiplayer mode, as it's easier to consistently reproduce the test run. Even with ultra settings, I was able to average almost 100 FPS, with above 60 for the 1% low. It was running perfectly fine. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature, and even with epic settings, I was able to average above 150 FPS, and well over 100 FPS for the 1% low. So it was running very nicely, with absolutely no issues at all. Not surprising, as it's a well-optimized game. It was a similar deal with Overwatch, which was tested playing in the practice range. Low, medium, and high settings were basically constantly hitting the frame cap of 300, and even maxed out at epic settings, almost 200 FPS averages were possible. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with a built-in benchmark, and this test was getting very high results for a laptop, around 150 FPS averages with lowest settings, and just under 90 even with highest settings. PUBG was tested using the replay feature, and once again, very nice frame rates, even for this somewhat suboptimally optimized game, with over 100 FPS possible in this test with ultra settings, and over 130 possible with medium settings or below. CSGO was tested using the Electrical FPS benchmark, and with all settings maxed out, the test was still getting almost 300 FPS, and just under 400 possible with all settings at minimum and a 1% low above 100 FPS. Again, very nice results for a laptop. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with a built-in benchmark, and given this runs well on lower-end hardware, it's no surprise to see that even with ultra settings, the 1% low is near the 144Hz refresh rate of the screen, with over 200 FPS averages. Far Cry 5 was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and the results were very nice for this test, with over 100 FPS averages possible at ultra settings, and up to 130 with low settings if for some reason that's not enough for you. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was another that was tested with the built-in benchmark, and I found it playable even with ultra-high settings, as you don't need a super high frame rate for this one, although higher was definitely possible with lower settings. Dota 2 was tested using a fairly intensive replay, so this should be a worst-case scenario. These results are not the same as actually playing the game, which would result in higher performance. I did play a quick game with ultra settings just for comparison, and it was averaging around 120 FPS with not much going on. Watch Dogs 2 is a demanding game, but it doesn't need a high frame rate to play. I can play it just fine with a solid 30 FPS, but even ultra settings were averaging over 70 FPS, with 50 for the 1% low. So no problems at all here with max settings. Ghost Recon is another demanding game and was tested using the built-in benchmark, and most laptops that I test aren't able to handle ultra settings in this game. However, in this test, almost 60 FPS averages were possible thanks to that powerful hardware. The Witcher 3 played very nicely, even with ultra settings. Despite the 50 FPS 1% low, the 100 average still felt smooth enough. Though of course, better results are possible with lower settings. The i9-8950HK, GTX 1080, and 64GB of dual channel memory are giving us very impressive results in all games tested, even at max settings. There's absolutely no problem playing at 1080p with the laptop screen, and I'd expect 1440p to be perfectly fine too, should you wish to plug in a larger external monitor. Again, the G703 is available with different specs, so expect different results with different hardware configurations. With all this power, the temperatures were quite warm, but I'll cover that in detail in a future video dedicated to thermal testing. So how do you guys think the ASUS G703 gaming laptop did in these games? If anything, it's overkill for the 1080p screen that it's paired with. I think it makes more sense for a desktop replacement with a secondary monitor. Either way though, with these specs, you'll be able to play anything no problems. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the full review of the ASUS G703 gaming laptop, temperature testing, and of course, future tech videos like this one.